Hi everyone, my name's Anna and I'm currently travelling in South America. Welcome back to my YouTube travel vlog, El Cielo is the Limit. In the last episode I spoke to you a lot about Mexico City and I explained that I had so much content that I was going to have to split the two episodes. And this episode is going to cover a little more in terms of sort of locations and geography. So we'll be talking about Oaxaca City, the coast, Chiapas, which will also include San Cristobal de las Casas. As always, there is a second video which will accompany this post. So if you prefer to take a look at photos and videos rather than listening to me talking, it's available for you to click on the next video. So starting off with Oaxaca City then. So after about an 8 to 10 hour bus journey from Mexico City, I arrived into Oaxaca. I checked into my hostel, which was a place called Las Americas, Hostel Las Americas, and again it was just a very cheap budget type hostel for backpackers. It was clean, people were friendly, it was an okay breakfast, so if you're looking for somewhere to stay, then that's an okay place to spend your money on. Now in terms of actually sort of going out and exploring the city, what I particularly loved about this place is everything was in walking distance, and you had everything from museums and cathedrals, plazas, lots of food markets, farmers markets. There were high-end restaurants, there were budget restaurants, there were local food stores, so there was everything in a fairly kind of accessible sort of walking limit in the city. Now one of the highlights which you will definitely come across in Oaxaca is Plaza Santo Domingo, which is where the cathedral is, and another church. And apart from it being a very beautiful cathedral and church to walk around, you also have the Oaxaca People Museum, which is right next door to it, which is more of an extension of the cathedral itself. So it's a beautiful building, beautiful museum to go walking around. It has amazing gardens as well, which I don't think you can actually enter, but you can kind of look from it from above onto the garden. And there's really amazing views of the mountains around it. Now the museum itself is more of a kind of anthropology type museum, talking about the sort of native people in Oaxaca before the conquistador, and then afterwards as well, up until modern day. So that was a really cool place to spend a couple of hours walking around. And oddly enough, they've got a courtyard with these really massive caterpillars, just kind of walking and roaming around freely, entering into the museum, which was a really odd but a cute thing to be able to see. One of the other highlights for me, and bearing in mind I was in Oaxaca for 3 days, I went to this market not once but twice. Is a place called La Cosecha, which is a fairly small kind of farmers market, so they sell some produce there, but generally speaking, when you go to a market in Mexico, it's not it's not kind of to sell their produce, it's more to actually sell meals. So there'll be everything from tacos to smoothies, juices, empanadas, pastries, lots and lots of things that you would go and you would actually buy something and sit and eat there. But also there were things like natural beauty products, and a few things that you could perhaps buy as souvenirs that were sort of slightly different to what you would find in usual souvenir shops. So I quite liked the fact that it was a shaded area as well, so if it was midday, you could sit and have something to eat or drink and be very comfortable there. And yeah, I was lucky enough on both occasions to have some live music playing in the background as well. So really beautiful experience there. So after 3 days in the city, I decided to head down towards the coast. However, I decided that I would take a bit of a leap of faith and respond to a couch surfing host message that I'd had through from a guy called Freddie, who lived in the mountains about an hour away from Puerto Escondido, which is the main city on the coast of Oaxaca. Now, it wasn't a place that I'd heard of before. I hadn't sort of seen it in any kind of travel blogs or vlogs. However, as I do speak some Spanish, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith and go ahead and say yes to his host request. So, and I couldn't have been happier that I did it, because I had 3 nights in this place in the mountains where, I kid you not, there was no tourists. I was definitely the only foreign person in this town, and I'd happened to be going on a weekend where there was a religious fiesta. So there were a lot of people on the streets. There was an incredible farmers market on the Sunday morning, which you get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to go along to. I ate breakfast tamales. I had all sorts of weird and wonderful food and drink that I just don't think I would have experienced if I hadn't met Freddie and his family. So I was really pleased that I did that. A highlight for me on that trip in particular was hiking up one of the mountains in the area. So we sort of woke up for 5 a.m. It was really hot, so any kind of hiking you want to do, you do have to get up very early. And yeah, we made it to the top. Unfortunately, it was overcast when we got to the top, so we didn't actually see a sunrise, but it didn't matter. It was a really beautiful experience. You could see the Pacific Ocean in the distance, and yeah, it was just a really beautiful moment to share with Freddie, and yeah, was really grateful for the time he spent with me and kind of showing me the culture of this town, and it was a really great experience. So after that little adventure in the mountains, I travelled an hour down south to Puerto Escondido, which is also known as PE amongst some backpackers. And it was after spending about 2 days, I think, there, that I realised I needed to be on the beach much longer, and decided to extend my trip. I think I was probably kidding myself if I ever thought I was only going to be satisfied with 1 week on the beach. But Puerto Escondido is a fairly big town. It's kind of split into 2 parts. So you've got the kind of old town, and then you've got the strip on the beach, which is where you've got most of your hostels, bars and kind of catering for tourists. So I stayed in the old town in a place called El Coyote Surf Hostel. Really great owner there, a guy called David, and I'll share the link to the hostel website in this description. Very cheap and cheerful, but it was very cheerful. So if you're looking for a good kind of value for money place, but also be able to meet other backpackers and kind of just chill, then that was a great place to stay. It was also where I had my very first surfing lesson, which personally I think went quite well. I had a really great teacher. It was just a one-on-one lesson for 500 pesos, which comes to about £25. So it was a 2-hour one-on-one lesson, and let's just say on the 3rd attempt I did manage to actually catch a wave. It was a very small wave, but I did catch it, and I definitely left feeling like I'd kind of caught the bug, and definitely wanted to get surfing at some point again soon, which I'm hoping to do in Peru. So that was a really great experience, and then I decided to leave Puerto Escondido and go to a place called Mazunte, which is about an hour along the coast from PE, and it was a much smaller kind of beach resort, bit more of a kind of chilled hippie type vibe. and I stayed in a really, really nice hostel called El Manguito. It was sort of very basic amenities, wooden cabins, outdoor kind of kitchen. Again, really, really nice owners who kind of gave me their WhatsApp number. So if I kind of needed anything, then I could message them, and every day they would kind of send through some information on kind of things to do and see in the town, or kind of local beaches you could go to, because it is a very small town. It was actually them who told us about the turtle conservation happening, I think about 10 kilometers away, and I was lucky enough to be there at one of the times of year where they actually have the turtles coming onto the beach from the sea and laying their eggs, and this is something which only happens for 3 days, 3 times a year. So we were incredibly lucky to have experienced that, and I'll try and find out some information on kind of when that's happening and include it in the description if you're interested in knowing. So it was at that point that I decided to cross the border and go to the Chiapas coast. Now, my story of going to the Chiapas coast actually started back in Puerto Escondido, where I'd met some Slovakian backpackers who told me about this amazing paradise that they'd been to called Boca del Cielo, which obviously kind of got me thinking, and I looked it up and decided that that's somewhere that I would like to go to as well. So instead of going straight to San Cristobal de las Casas, I decided to make a pit stop on the coast. And in true backpacking community style, I'd met a German couple who'd I told about this place, and they decided they wanted to come as well. So we actually decided to take a bit of a risk and try and hitchhike across the border. So I know a lot of people will be thinking, why did you hitchhike in Mexico? But for me, I can only tell you about my experience, and my experience was very, very positive. Everyone we got picked up by was very, very friendly. As I mentioned before, you know, I do speak some Spanish, so I was able to communicate with people. I'm not too sure what it would have been like if you couldn't communicate with them. Yeah, it was a really, really fantastic experience. I was inspired by this German couple to do it because they'd previously done it when traveling before, and I'd also watched the Budgeteers, the Central America series, where they hitchhike all the way from California down to Panama. So I'm not recommending you do any kind of hitchhiking, but if you do decide to do it, I mean, like I said, my experience was a really beautiful one. So the very last place that I stayed in Mexico was the beautiful little town of San Cristobal de las Casas, which is a very popular and common destination on the backpacker route around South Mexico. Now, the reason why I'd actually came here wasn't because of that, but because I'd picked up a volunteering opportunity via an application and website called Workaway. Now, I don't think I've spoken to you guys about what Workaway is, but it's a fantastic kind of concept and website whereby backpackers or people who are interested in traveling can search all the different volunteering opportunities in the areas that they're traveling to, and then eventually kind of get there and spend anything from, usually the minimum is about 2 weeks, and you know, some people stay for 6 months, 12 months, even longer. So it's a really fantastic way to I guess kind of break up your traveling and kind of break up that long amount of time that you often spend on the road as a backpacker, and just kind of find somewhere to ground your feet. And of course, you know, if anyone has an opportunity to do some volunteering whilst they're traveling, I would really recommend it for those reasons. Now, I went to a dog sanctuary run by a very fierce and determined and kind lady called Gabby. She has 50 dogs in the forest in the mountains, about half an hour from San Cristobal de las Casas. And my job there was very, very simple. It wasn't complex work. It was, cleaning up the dog waste every morning. It was letting them off, taking them for walks. I mean, there's acres and acres of land on this sanctuary, so you would just kind of take a couple of dogs and they would probably walk you more than you were walking them. Other tasks were cooking the dogs breakfast and dinner, cooking for the other volunteers, which could be anything from 4 to 10 volunteers at any given time, and giving them baths, and there were some dogs that were in pretty bad shape. A lot of these dogs are from the street, so they've got quite bad injuries, or they've just been sort of through something pretty bad physically or mentally. So a lot of it was, of course, maintaining hygiene and cleanliness and making sure the dogs were okay. But more than anything, it was about just giving them some love and spending some time with them, which went a long way in a very short amount of time for some of these dogs that were in pretty dire states. I really highly recommend doing this particular workaway with Gabby and the dogs at this sanctuary. So if you are thinking of going to San Cristobal de las Casas, and you do have sort of two weeks to spare, and you can volunteer, then I've included the link in the description, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on that. So that's everything on Mexico. I know I've been talking a lot, so hopefully you've still been listening to me. And like I said, lots of videos and photos to accompany this. If you're interested in having a look, please click on the next video. And please tune in for the next episode, which is going to be on Guatemala. And I'm really, really excited to talk to you about this amazing country. I'll see you soon. Bye.